Hey everybody, my name's Joe Testa, and I am happy to have you here to check out this artist on artist interview series we've been doing and focused mostly on Zildjian Live Season 2. For this particular pairing, we're pairing up Marcus Gilmore and Gergo Borlai, and they're going to talk to each other about their performances at Zildjian Live and go into the events of the day and other personal tidbits about each other. More importantly, what we're trying to do is we're trying to give you guys as much educational material as we can on the Zildjian.com website. More specifically, if you go to the Zildjian Learning Zone, you can find all kinds of great educational content, such as downloadable transcriptions, Mike Dolbear and Aaron Spears interviews, learn the music videos, a whole bunch of tons of great stuff. And hopefully you'll be able to explore and get into so many different things and suck as much of the talent that you can from our artist roster, which is something we just think is amazing, and we hope you do too. So in this particular lesson, Gergo is going to be interviewing Marcus about his performance on that day, which is quite extraordinary. And so without further ado, let's dive right into watching a little clip of Marcus's performance and then get right into the interview. All right, thanks a lot. Get started, and we'll start with I'm gonna hand it over to you because today you're interviewing Marcus. So let's start with you and we'll just take it from there.
All right. So hey, Marcus.
What's up, man? How you feeling?
First of all, I'm truly honored to being in this conversation with you guys. And so I have a couple of questions to Marcus. First of all, your show at Zildjian Live was phenomenal and absolutely remarkable and unforgettable, to be honest. I was there, so I saw it, personally.
Appreciate that, bro.
And that last part with that spontaneous jam was the crown. I don't know, but was one of the highest point in that day for me. Everything's spontaneous and improvising and jamming, directed by love and music. It was just absolutely unforgettable. And
so we got extra credit there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Didn't know that was going to happen. It just kind of happened. It was cool.
Yeah. And Marcus, I'm following you since 2013 when you started to play with Chicoria. And I just noticed that you are one of the pioneer of the new generation of jazz drummers. And what jazz drumming in the 21st century means is you for me. So you are the new guy who's playing jazz how you have to play in the 21st century, if I'm right. And Can you tell me few things about your background? We all know who's your grandfather, I think. And but can you tell me, please, few things about your background, your first influences, and your your musical interest, and few things about that, please?
Sure, man. Thank you. First of all, thank you. Okay, so my background. Well, I'm born and raised in Hollis, Queens, New York, and I come from a musical family. Like you said, I guess most people that might see this may already know who my grandfather is. But I actually have there are a lot of other musicians in my family as well. So growing up, my father is a saxophone player and arranger, producer, and he always wanted to play drums, but he never really played drums. So
Okay.
that helped because if you have a father that wants to play drums and his son plays drums, then you probably get some support, some encouragement. So that
Right.
definitely helps. And
Yeah.
actually my mother and my father had a gospel group together back in
Okay.
the early '80s. So that's part of my foundation. My uncles were around as well. So my uncle Craig Haynes also plays drums, and he played with a lot of really great musicians. Most notably Sun Ra
Yeah.
and a lot of other cats. So and then my other uncle Graham is a cornetist,
Mm-hmm.
and he used to play trumpet. He plays cornet, and he's always been very involved in a lot of interesting projects. So between all of that, this music was always around, and also there were a lot of great musicians who lived in the neighborhood. So I always had really great examples of musicians.
That's a
Um,
fortune.
that's a absolutely fortune for sure. So it's definitely a blessing, and I don't take it for granted. Yeah, so I grew up. Um, I got my kit when I was 10,
Mm-hmm.
and from that point on, I actually before then I already knew that I wanted to be a professional musician,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't get the kit until I was 10. So that's when I got to start practicing, and then I started studying. I studied inside of school in the conservatories, but I also studied outside of school too.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, I don't know, I don't know what details you would like. I can start
Well,
talking about all kind of things, but I mean,
I
I
know,
don't
I know,
know.
I know. Okay, few things because I'm not really a school guy, you know.
Right, right. Yeah, I'm not either.
I'm.
Actually, I'm not either.
So I'm interested. What was your your direction of your practicing outside of school? You know, by yourself. So what was
Got
your
you.
point? Yeah, yeah.
That's a great question. Um, well, I spent a lot of time uh listening to records
Sure.
and trying to see as many great musicians as I could in person.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like the late '90s before YouTube was really a thing, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Remember those days?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So I really had to I just had to do a lot of research and try to figure out who was playing it, and if it was a free show or how I could get there. I wasn't really old enough to take the train by myself and
yeah. Okay.
driving or anything, so I always have to have a guardian with me. Eventually I was old enough so I could just go to spots on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily I was very fortunate also to grow up in New York City, so everybody kind of came through.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really too hard to see somebody, because it's like if you had just missed them performing, chances were they would perform again later that year, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe like the same time next year. So I was really fortunate in that sense. Yeah, my individual studies are just really it's really a lot of listening and trying to make sense of things, in a way that I can understand, I guess, basically. So
Okay.
Hey, I have a question because I know your mother,
yes,
and she's a vocalist, correct?
yes,
And so were you were a vocalist as well, I believe,
yeah,
right?
yes. Well, I
So
mean, yeah, I played. I mean, I sang in the choir.
yeah.
Um,
So
so
the reason why I bring it up is because I noticed, I always notice this in your playing, especially, but specific to Zildjian Live, I had recognized that your control and mastery of dynamics and interplaying within the band is on another level. And I wonder if that some of that influence comes from having a vocal background where you have to listen, like, you know, that interaction of how everything else in the band should lay underneath you. Did that have anything to do with it, or am I maybe reaching a bit?
No, I wouldn't say you're reaching. I mean, it must have something to do with my development for sure. And you know, even somebody like my grandfather, you know, who's one of the architects of the music, you know, he spent a lot of time playing behind vocalists as well, even if he never professionally sang as a vocalist, but he spent a lot of time with vocalists. And he's a lyricist himself. You know, he knows the lyric set to every composition. So yeah, I think that definitely can improve, you know, inform you and how to approach a situation with, you know, with the musical fortitude that's necessary to, you know, to do what it has to do. So I don't think you're reaching with that. It's definitely a part of my development for sure.
I know it depends of the music genre, but your main sound was always a little bit like this. I mean, jazzy, a little bit more jazzy than rocky, or you're playing also a lot in, you know, rock tune drums or something like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess, you know, my first most people don't know this, but my first professional gig was actually a doo-wop gig. I played with playing with the Cadillacs, legendary R&B group from the 50s, 60s.
Yeah.
So you know, I was always into all types of music, but I guess my foundation is really, you know, the people that I look to as the ultimate architects, not just of genre but of the drum set, are the guys that a lot of people would consider to be jazz legends. So I guess that's my foundation.
You know, I actually have a question for both you guys, because I know, Gergo, you also started at a very young age. So both of you started very young. And it seems to me as though as you were playing, the people you were around were more encouraging and just allowed you guys to develop organically, as opposed to like, well, stay in the shed for a while, kid, and when you're ready, we'll bring you up. Seems like you were allowed to have a lot of real musical experiences very young. Is that true?
Well,
certainly true for me.
Yeah, absolutely true for me too.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, you know, I started when I was 3 and started to playing with bands when I was 11, and they never used me as a joker. They used me as a musician.
Yeah.
So I you know, I had to learn humility. You know, I had to be humble. You know, it wasn't about drum soloing. You know, it was about connection between musicians.
Yeah, and the first time I saw Marcus, I think Marcus was IAJE in New York City.
Oh yeah.
Were you what, you 14? Maybe 14?
Yeah, I probably just turned 14. It was like 2001, right?
Yeah, and you were playing like at IAJE, man. Like, so it was, I remember hanging out with your mom just talking. It's like, this is crazy.
Yeah, she was always there. Yeah, I think I was playing with the All City Jazz Band. But then Ndugu actually reached out to the All City Jazz Band director and asked if he could borrow a rhythm section for his workshop. So I played a workshop with Ndugu.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yep.
So talking about the Zildjian Live gig, besides of everything else, what really amazed me, your incredible freedom inside the music. And I know this is because of your jazzy or jazz background, but how you use that freedom inside that kind of hip-hop-ish music, you know, which was a little bit more orchestrated than totally free jazz, for example. Sorry for my English, but it's really amazed me. Can you please tell me, I know it's hard to talk about conception of freedom, but can you tell me, what are you doing? What are you feeling when you are playing so freely in a band, while they are playing, for example, an ostinato, or, you know, just some background session and et cetera, et cetera? Can you tell me few words about your freedom on your instrument?
Sure. Everything everything that I play is always informed uh by melody. Um so I mean, if we're playing free form, then then we can come up with our own melodies. But even when we're playing in more structured environments,
Hmm.
and there might be some degree of freedom in there, it's always based on the melody of the composition. um that's kind of like my impetus, in terms of information.
Hmm.
Now, of course, like, when it comes to like just feelings and just expressing those feelings, of course that's a whole different thing. But to me, the melody is what determines what I'll play. The melody, and of course the harmonic structures, all that is what determines, that's like my jumping ground, and that's kind of what determines the difference between playing
Hmm.
this tune versus that tune.
Yeah.
Um, but then, of course, how I navigate through that and whatever happens is really very much in the moment. And if you're playing in an environment when you're improvising and the other musicians in the band are improvising as well, then that's a very specific thing to to the particular musicians you're playing with. That can
Hmm.
change. Of course,
Hmm.
if I'm playing with somebody that might be busier on the bass, then I might not play the same way as somebody who maybe keeps it more straightforward on the bass, and that can give me more freedom to open up a little more.
Hmm.
So yeah, it really depends.
Yeah, well, speaking
Sure.
about that, like you played with mono. What
Oh
was
yeah,
that? Well,
right.
give us your vibe on that. I mean, because the interplay between the two of you is, or like the interplay with any drummer with mono is amazing. But what's
Sure.
your personal experience with it?
Yeah, well, we actually played in a band. We only did a few gigs together, but we played in a band before Zildjian Live.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, we played with this project that DJ Logic had.
Ah,
We did a few gigs like in New York and in Newport. Um, and yeah, so I mean, from the very first time I played with him, I mean, I was already aware of him before I played with him, so
yeah,
I kind of had some idea of what it would be like, but you never know what it's going to be like when you play with somebody. It's one thing to listen to it; it's another thing to actually be in it, right?
yeah, yeah.
So, but it's obviously great. I mean, he's very, very grounded rhythmically, which is the most important thing for me. I love playing with bass players that are very grounded rhythmically, because it feels good. It feels good.
Yeah, yeah.
We all want it to feel good. So, Mono's great. I mean, and that's just one element of his playing. Obviously, he has many layers, many
Yeah.
layers to his playing and his ideas.
I have a question for you, Marcus.
Yes.
Um, can you please tell me things about reacting for a soloist as a drummer? What's the way of the connection being fit musically for a soloist?
You know, it's really just a dialogue. Sometimes it can feel more reactive, but a lot of times you know, I- as a rhythm section player, specifically as a drummer, it can be very proactive too. You can really guide things, and you have a lot of power in the way things are shaped. So of course, it really depends on who I'm playing with,
Sure.
but generally speaking, there's a lot of power and responsibility behind this instrument,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and the way it works in these different ensembles. And so well, ultimately, it's just a dialogue.
Hmm.
So you got to have big ears. Well, I prefer to approach it that way,
Yeah.
um to you know to respond and respond in the most musical way,
Yep.
um and to be present. I think that's the most important thing, is having big ears. That's the best way to
Abs-
communicate. You know what I mean? Like, if you're just
oh
talking,
yeah.
talking, talking, not listening, then it's like, why are we out here together? You could just do something else on your own. You play the same way when you're by yourself anyway, right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
Marcus, just go play outside, man. Just do your thing. Just
yeah.
so
That's funny.
now it's time for me to ask about your hi-hat playing.
Okay.
So I saw many of your videos, your explanation, but what was your main thought to get this sound involve your drums?
Well, it kind of developed in an interesting way, So I've talked about this before. The initial impetus behind playing two hi-hats for me,
Mhm.
at least playing two hi-hats with the foot, because we all know a lot of people that play two hi-hats, usually one with the foot and one closed or something, kind of like
Yeah,
a
yeah.
permanent situation. But the main idea behind playing two hi-hats with both of your feet, or with the foot at least, it was really just the sound that I heard with Milford Graves, who was actually a very, very dear, close friend and mentor to me, who also
Okay.
just passed away the same week as Chick. So I when I first was hearing his solo recordings, I was really blown away for a lot of reasons. But one thing that really stuck out to me was just the idea of playing two hi-hats with the foot. So when I first started playing two hi-hats, I was actually playing one on the right side and one on the left side, but it was just two regular hi-hat stands. So it was kind of awkward having it in between the bass drum and the floor tom. And also sometimes the rod can be kind of high, so it can kind of get in the way of your cymbal right here.
Yeah.
But I just love the sound. But yeah, I was at a friend's place who has a lot of drums and percussion instruments, and he had like multiple hi-hat stands in this room. Somehow I ended up just playing it on the left side, and that was what was interesting about that is when I did it, one of the cymbals was was like a traditional hi-hat size, like maybe 14 inches or something, and the other one was really small. I think they were like two, I don't know what to call them, like kind of two really small chinas or something like that.
Okay.
About like 6-7 inches or something. Anyway, I thought it was interesting because it's one thing to play two hi-hats that are the same size, and it's another thing to play two hi-hats with very different type of frequency ranges. So like for instance, when I was playing one on the left and one on the right, sometimes I would play with like 18s on one side or even 20s and like 14s on the other side, just to have like a range, a nice spectrum. Then after a while, I figured it could be cool. After I started doing it both on the left side, it could be cool to have one that was higher than the other one and kind of thicker. So it would kind of serve as more. I would probably play less accents on it and more just consistent
Okay.
rhythms. And so that's when I originally started playing. I guess I started playing Zill bells when I had that thought. Zill bells are really interesting cymbals. But then I got curious of maybe if it was a little bit drier, it might be interesting, different kind of way. The Zill bells work really great though when I'm playing electronic music, because they cut they're like a quarter inch or something, right?
Yeah, totally.
So I was like, okay, these are definitely gonna work whether they're mic'd whether they're mic'd or not. It's gonna be heard. It's gonna be heard. But then I actually went to Zildjian and tried to work on some cymbals that were a little bit thinner and drier. So
Okay.
So that's what these are. These are one of them. This is like maybe 7 inches or something, and I got it hammered and it's unlathed, so it has it's a lot drier and has a shorter attack.
Yeah,
Great.
the ones on Zildjian Live, I think were 10 inches or close to 10 anyways. Yeah.
Yeah, I
sure.
can't remember. The thing
They
about
sounded so good though, man.
Thanks, man. Yeah, when I got the prototypes, they were all kind of weird sizes, not the typical 6 and 9 that Zimbos are. So I always get kind of lost when I talk about sizes.
But you are playing with heel toe, am I right? Is that part what you are playing with the second on the second
with the heel? Yes. Yep.
Yeah, with the heel.
Yep.
How did you develop that? I mean, obviously practice it, but
yeah.
but like, but were there certain exercises you did or worked on, or you just like you had to shed it for a minute to get it down before you could go into a live gig performance with it and make it musical? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, well, for me, the most important thing was, yeah, of course, getting comfortable playing it, but also having a clear concept, so I'm not just doing it
To do it.
to
Yeah,
do
yeah,
it. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
you know. So, and yeah, that was the most important thing for me. Even now, you know, I still have some ideas that come through my head, and I have to kind of think about it. Like, okay, how am I going to do this? And I have to sit and just, you know, just work it out, basically. That happened to me a few days ago, actually. We were playing, I can't remember the name of the song. It's a really popular song right now. And we did a live version of it with Keon. And I was like, oh, yeah, that would sound good if I placed the second hi-hat on this beat. And I tried, but I was like, but I want to do something with the main hi-hat where it opens and closes.
Mm.
So if the main hi-hat stays closed, then you can kind of do whatever with this. But if you're gonna have a pattern where the main one is opening and closing and the second one is opening and closing, then you really have to sit and think and say, okay, how am I gonna? So I thought about it and I got it down. I got like 8 measures down, but I still wasn't comfortable enough to do it for the live gig. So I I just played it. I kept it kind of simple for the live gig, but when we were rehearsing, I was like, I think it would sound really cool if I did it like this, but it was a little loose. It wasn't solid enough, so I didn't play like that for the gig.
The way you play it in the show is amazing. Like, it's so musical how you did that. It was great.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Can you show us some interesting stuff with that
Yeah.
that thing?
I mean, interest is whatever determines it as being interesting is of course contingent on whoever's listening to it. I can't tell you if it's going to be interesting or not, but I can try to play something.
Yeah.
Please do.
Most people
Please
find
do.
it interesting.
Okay, all right. All right, I'll play something. I don't know what I'm going to play. I'll play something.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Freaking amazing.
Thanks, man.
So can you? I don't know, Joe. Maybe we can talk about this, but I'm so much curious about your symbol selection.
Okay.
Yeah, what's interesting about that, Gergs, is and why we were thinking this would be such a good combo is you guys are completely different on symbols. Like, Marcus is all K. Marcus all K, darker sounding, and you're like all A's, bright sounding. And it's so, but they both work when you guys play, which is something that I love to see and witness. But Marcus, man, like, talk us through, like, I don't know if you remember even what you were playing that day, but I mean, I know what you were playing, but
yeah, I remember. Wait, first, but can we talk about these hi-hats first, because it's really interesting. I just picked up whatever pair I saw. I guess it was on this guitar stand that has all the symbols on them. So it was the only complete set of hi-hats that was on there at the moment, so I just picked them up. But it just so happens that these hi-hats, I usually don't play hi-hats at this size, these are 13, but these are the first hi-hat symbols I ever got. These are the ones that my grandfather gave me back in 1996.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, they're just, some K. It's just a K from the 90s or late 80s, I guess. I don't know
Wow,
which camera
that's
to look at.
amazing.
We talked about this a few months ago. Remember, Joe? You were like,
Yeah.
my first. Just so happens that that's what I'm playing right now.
That's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and this is like a new beat. Actually, this is an A, right? Is a new beat A?
Yeah.
The new
Yeah.
beats are A's, right?
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
like a brilliant new beat. 13. So I have one A on my stand right now.
That's funny.
I got one A with me.
Well, what was interesting is that I noticed about the way you're in Zildjian in the Zildjian Live Performance, your orchestration of the cymbal sounds, the cymbals are the way you play them is much more than just something you're hitting. They're an instrument. They're all an instrument, the way you approach them and how you made them work within the musical composition. And so back to Gergo's original point, did you choose the cymbal specific for that song, or you just made those work for the song you were playing?
I think it's a combination, really, because most of those cymbals were provided. I knew that there would be great cymbals there, and I was like,
yeah,
I could bring my own cymbals, but I think for this, I'm just curious to see what kind of cymbals would be available to me at a Zildjian Live. I was like, so the only thing I really brought were the second pair of hi-hats, and everything else was already there. And so I ended up playing a special dry ride. I think it was 21 right?
inch. Yeah.
And a nice Constantinople crash.
Yeah,
like
17
or something like that, right? 17.
17. Yeah, K-Con. Yeah.
And it was an orchestral cymbal. Wasn't it an orchestral cymbal that was on my left? I think a Constantinople.
You had a 20-inch K-Con with, I think, 4 rivets, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, some rivets in there. Was it an orchestral cymbal or no? I thought it was, but maybe it wasn't.
I'm pretty sure it was K-Con, but I
mean K-Con for sure.
Yeah.
I
don't remember if it was orchestral. Or
okay,
not.
but it was definitely K-Con.
Remember.
Yep. And the hi-hats, I actually have those hi-hats around here somewhere. 15-inch K
Sweet.
K Sweet with a few clusters.
Right? Yeah.
They had some tambourines in them.
Yeah, you had the tambourines in there. That was cool.
But they had 4 originally. I think I just left one in because for that I felt like 4 was a little overbearing, so I left one in. But right now they have none. I took them all out. So, but yeah, I think that those cymbals worked really well with that composition and with that ensemble.
Then you had the 14.
Oh, I had some other hi-hats, right?
14-inch hybrid hi-hats, yeah.
That were close.
That's what was crazy. Like you had basically 3 different hi-hat things going on, and you worked them all perfectly, not only together but at the right moments of the song. And I don't know, it was beautiful how you orchestrated all that stuff.
So you were always using these kind of drier K cymbals?
Most of my life. I mean, I look around. It's mostly K's. I mean, all kind of stuff in here. I mean, y'all want to see what I got? I got all kind of stuff just hanging around. It's pretty cool. This is actually one cymbal that I recorded with many times. To me, it kind of functions like a K because it's really dark. It's kind of heavy too, but it's actually a 22-inch wind gong.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
But I got them, the lovely folks at Zildjian, to put a hole in the middle so I can put it on the cymbal stand.
Oh, okay.
So I think people started seeing like cymbal like this
genius.
with this little rope hanging. They're like, "Oh, why does Marcus have this rope?" It's like it's affecting the sound. Like, actually, guys, it's just a gong with a hole in the middle. It's just a gong. See, so I can pick it up and play it. But I got some really, really interesting sounds with it when I record. My favorite recording that I did with it is a song I did with my dear friend Taylor McFerrin. And I'm playing that cymbal, and it sounds like some crazy kind of flat ride, but it's it's really a gong, and it's a lot drier when you put it on the stand naturally because I guess these cymbals are, as opposed to most cymbals that are thicker in the middle, this one is thinner, and it's not really meant to be played on a stand, so it sounds like really dry. But I put a bunch of rivets in it, so it's like really clicky. When I play them with the shout out to Vic Firth, when I play them with the boleros, it sounds crazy. It sounds crazy. Cool. I love it. So anyway, I got a lot of interesting things around here. K. This is actually a a flat ride I got made to play with Chick. Actually, it's 21.
Just
Flat
wanted
ride-
to
the
ask.
flat- The flat
just-
ride thing runs in the family, man.
Oh man, come on, man. You know, it's part of the DNA, man. I had to embrace it.
It's so great.
I mean, I love cymbals with bells, but I definitely have a special love for flats. You know.
Everybody, you know what's funny about that? And just a side note, I have to bring it up. Everybody, Erskine hit me up the other week. He's like, "Hey, I'm looking for a flat ride," and everybody says, "You know, I'm trying to get the Roy sound." It's defined. That's just it. That's the sound.
That's the sound.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I mean, it is
So good.
It is what it is. You know, some things you just gotta call it what it is.
It is what it is, man. It's so great.
Yeah, my last question was about about China cymbals. You are not using China cymbals that often as I saw that. Is it possible?
Yeah, that is possible. It's definitely possible. It's good. It's a good point. I don't know. I honestly don't know if I've ever owned. I mean, I think I had one a long time. I was gifted one a long time ago, but then I eventually traded it in for a different cymbal. So that's when I was like 11 or 12 or something. Maybe.
Okay.
Or maybe I was like 15 when I got it, 14 when I got it, and I traded it at 15.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't. But I do have some really trashy regular cymbals though.
Well, you know, let me ask you about something because you are a K guy for the most part. Why is K for you? What is it about the K that you gravitate towards?
I guess it's just a little darker, which is it's typically a little bit darker. Not always, but typically a little darker. And I usually like darker cymbals, I guess. But you know, there are some really nice you know, thin A's that are you know, really beautiful, have really beautiful tonal qualities that I'm into. I definitely have I have a nice Avedis Crash, the vintage Avedis that came out. Excuse me. I have one of those. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny because Gergo's all bright. So you're all dark and he's all bright. And I assume that has a lot to do with maybe the music you guys are playing, right? I mean, this is why you choose what you do, or is it just your ear, or it's a combination thereof?
For me, it's definitely a combination. Because, you know, some people could play some of the same music that I play with different cymbal selection, and it could sound okay if that's what they're really hearing and that's how they play it, you know, that's how they want to approach it. Yeah. But for me, you know, I prefer these typically. But actually, I've been really curious about getting, you know, because they made some cymbals back in the day. They call them AKs, not like AK-47, but not that kind of AK. But you know, you've seen those vintage. Have y'all ever seen these vintage A's that have K hammerings?
Mm-hmm. I've seen some of those.
Yeah.
I'm curious about getting something like that done. You know, like an A, but just really thin with a certain type of hammering.
Well, let's talk about it. We gotta talk about that.
Really dope, Joe. I think that would be very nice. Yep.
I had a question specific to some drums too. Like you have that is it an 8-inch tom to your right under your ride cymbal in the Zildjian Live?
Oh, I thought you were talking about like right
No,
here.
no, not right here. It's off to your right. I think it almost
yeah.
above your floor tom in a way, right?
Yeah.
What was the thinking behind that?
Well, I used to use a rototom over there like years ago, which I still have. It's like a 6-inch rototom. And I like having, you know, the really low big tom right next to a really small. Something about the positioning of that, especially back when I was using a roto, was very satisfying. Having, I mean, just certain things that you can do, I guess, with the angles, like having a small one right there and a big one right here. I don't know. I like the positioning of it. So then when I started playing, you know, I kind of stopped playing that roto, and now I play sonar. I play sonar drums, and they make really nice 8-inch toms. So I figured, you know, I could put it there, and I'd have more options with the angle because it's mounted on an actual tom stand instead of like a straight stand like the rotos were. So, yeah, I like having small toms right over there. I don't have one on this kit, but I have some drums coming that are coming with an 8-inch tom, so that'll be really nice.
Yeah, excellent.
So what are you practicing or playing these days when you're home, when you're sitting behind the drums? What are you playing? What is your mood?
I mean, it really depends. I mean, if I'm in a, if I'm going through a period where I have a lot of recordings or gigs. I mean, that's been happening here and there in the middle of the quarantine. There were some more quiet moments in the beginning, but as things started kind of picking up, my practicing is mostly just limited to just, I don't know. Sometimes I just do basic maintenance, which I call like just playing around the instrument. And I'm always into drawing as many sounds as I can out of the instruments. So I like to do that. I like to spend time doing that. To me, the sound is the most important thing. Sound and then your feel is the most important thing. So those are the things I work on, I guess, when I don't have a lot of time. If I have more time, then I can work on specific independence type things, or moving melodies around the instrument. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
I can always work on some stuff with these.
Oh yeah.
If I hear a particular melody, whatever, I figure out a way to play it.
Something you guys both do that is I always found amazing, and it's your single strokes, man. Like, a la Billy Cobham or even Dennis, like it just comes down from that. But you guys have such clean single stroke rolls. Is there something you guys have done to get to that? I mean, obviously there has, but is there something specific you guys can attribute to getting to that point?
Gergo got some crazy singles for sure.
You had a few in there too, man. That's why I brought it up, because I saw you do, like, you were doing it within your soloing and stuff. And it was quite impressive,
Thanks. I mean, for me, I never spent too much time practicing on the pillow, but I know that can give you some really great results. But practicing singles, to me, it's like one of the hardest things, but it's also one of the simplest things too.
Yeah.
It's like
absolutely.
It can be challenging to get it the way you want it, but also it's just a single, like, it's pretty straightforward. So there's different ways to do it. I mean, I do singles on the ride. I usually use my fingers a lot to do that. But when I'm playing on the drums, I usually use more wrists. But if I'm playing a cymbal beat and I wanted to do a double time or something like that, I typically don't use my wrist for that on the cymbals, but I almost always do on the drums. Although I use my fingers sometimes on the drums too. It depends. But in a more traditional, like right left single, it's usually more wrist.
It's so interesting. I mean, when you play those those fills and those single strokes, I mean, it made it look so easy. I mean, it was just so. It's like so natural from you, and it's like from tiny fingers. It's just going without any, heavy physical investment or something like that.
Thanks, man. Yeah,
He's too humble, Gerg. He's too humble.
Just, one by one, left, right.
Well, I was practicing single stroke a lot when I was a kid, on pillows only because of my neighborhood. So,
Oh, okay.
I wasn't lucky. So I couldn't practice on drums, but I did a lot for years on pillows.
Wow.
And, I had no idea until my age of 15 there is any other, a method for hands like paradiddles or something, just only single and double stroke. And I thought, oh, that's it. Okay.
That's it. Well, Tony Williams said there's only three rudiments: singles, doubles, and flams. And everything's a combination of those.
Yeah.
Right? You wouldn't be wrong.
I mean, if it's good enough for Tony,
That's right.
It's good enough for me.
Exactly. The song you picked there, it's interesting because I read some of the comments and some of the people are like, Marcus was, I think someone said like he was told to play something that he doesn't normally play, but being involved in that, I know that wasn't the case. I know that you and Sput, like, I know how Sput works, and that's not what he would typically do. So maybe give us a rundown of how you guys came up with the tune. And
yeah, Yeah, Sput and I met Sput probably around 2014, I think, in LA. Actually, it was actually a gig that he was doing. He was playing. He was actually playing keys, like key bass and synths on the gig. And so he's such a chameleon, so he can kind of just hop around when he wants. But he was playing keys, bass synth and regular synth on the gig. And actually, Ronald Bruner was playing on the gig. It was a gig in LA, and I remember I brought one of my cymbals down to let him play. So it was kind of like an open. Well, it wasn't so open in the beginning. It was really just like the band playing. But eventually, folks started sitting in. So eventually, I sat in, and that was the first time we played together. But that wasn't more. That wasn't really necessarily. It wasn't necessarily a straight ahead gig. I guess it was more of a fusion of rhythms. Maybe more backbeat oriented. So that was the first time we actually played together. So he already had a sense of like the different types of things I like to get involved in. So when it came time for this, he just sent me several different pieces. He was like, well, before he even did that, he said, look, if there's a song of yours that you want to play, I can arrange it for you, or you can come in with an arrangement, and that's cool. Or we can write something together, or I could write something that I think could go with one of your vibes, and you just tell me which one you want to go with. So he really gave me like a lot of options, and I normally would have written something and maybe arranged it with him, but I was already under like some deadlines with writing some other music, so I figured, I said, let me just let you write something or send me some stuff, and I'll choose which one feels best. And so that's what he did. He sent me a few different. I think he sent me 3 different tracks, and I chose that one. And that's basically what it was. But each of the ones that he sent, I could have played either one. I mean, I could kind of see why he would send them to me, because he was like, I'm gonna send you some stuff that I think matches your vibe, and I think they did, all 3 of them, but I chose that one. So
it's amazing. He's so prolific with it.
Yeah.
And then of course we got the bonus
control.
jam at the end.
Yeah, no, it's really out of control though. When I look at just this one season alone, the types of compositions that they had to put together, and just the amount of work that goes behind that, and how different each one was for each artist, and how different each player was. And that's just one season. He's done this several times. It's kind of
he did it he did 2 Zildjians and then 2 VF jams. He's done 4 of them, man.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And that's in addition to his actual own repertoire in his band. Like, that's crazy.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys being part of this, just being part of Zildjian Live, and just being part of the Zildjian family. I mean, it means a lot to us all here. I can say that not just from a personal standpoint, but from the company. I mean, everybody at Zildjian is just honored to have you guys and all our artists, and so to be able to get a little bit more in depth on insight of how you guys think, how you play, I think it's just it's a nice thing to be able to pass along. And I think especially in this format, let's get this kind of thing out there. It'll last forever, and I think hopefully for generations to come, people will be able to get some pickups on some stuff here. So, but anyways, long way of saying thank you very much. Appreciate you guys both.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Marcus.
Yeah, thank you, girl. Thank you, Joe.